It's kids, it's children.
This is footage from a United Nations convoy escorting trucks into Gaza.
If you wish for that, if you wish what you call a Palestinian state, put it up in London, in Paris, in your countries, which become more and more similar to the Middle East.
The divide this Thursday night over Canada's decision to recognize Palestine as a state.
We appreciate that, actually.
Rewarding bad behavior is just, it's sickening.
The message it sends to Israel as the desperation for food in Gaza only deepens. And how the U.S. president is linking Canada's support for a Palestinian state to a trade deal.
I didn't like that.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. We begin with breaking news. President Trump has made good on his threat to impose 35% tariffs on some Canadian imports. The White House says Trump signed an executive order to that effect late today. Earlier today, Trump had said he didn't like that Canada intends to recognize Palestine as a state and said it could make trade negotiations very tough. This is what Trump's Commerce Secretary said on Fox News.
Come on, don't be so tone deaf, right? The president is totally into trying to get peace in Gaza, and you're throwing your hat in the ring from Canada.
But late today, the White House issued a statement that made no mention of Canada recognizing Palestine. Instead, it repeated false claims about the flow of illicit drugs from Canada to the U.S. What? Canada has failed to cooperate in curbing the ongoing flood of fentanyl and other illicit drugs, the White House said, and it has retaliated against the U.S. for the president's actions to address this unusual and extraordinary threat to the United States. It says in response to Canada's continued inaction and retaliation, President Trump has found it necessary to increase the tariff on Canada from 25% to 35% to effectively address this existing emergency. We will get to reaction to Canada's policy shift on Palestine in just a moment, but we begin with Taria Isri on where things stand with trade.
Oh, yeah. These are Muslim values. These are Canadian values.
Happy birthday! A few days short. A little bit. A few days short, but didn't have a chance to see you on the day.
Will there always be a Canada?
There will always be a Canada.
All right, elbows up.
Elbows up.
It would be helpful for Canadians to know exactly what you would do when it comes to tariffs. So why are you being so reticent to talk about that?
Because I'm a good negotiator. I have negotiated a number of situations in the past. I know how to manage crises.
More than just elbows.
No deal, not even a phone call.
We haven't spoken to Canada today. He's called, and we'll see. But we have made a few deals today that are excellent deals for the country.
U.S. President Donald Trump posted on Truth Social he's giving Mexico a 90-day grace period, but that it will continue to pay a 25% fentanyl tariff, 25% on cars, and 50% on steel, aluminum, and copper.
They've been very, very poorly led, and all we want is fairness.
Hey, that's something everyone can enjoy.
Oh, yeah. Trump threatened that Canada's plan to recognize the state of Palestine could hurt talks.
All right, elbows up.
Elbows up.
Even though Mexico already did that last February.
It's an example of how Donald Trump loves chaos, and he wants to create as much uncertainty as possible, and he wants to give himself as much leverage as possible.
Prime Minister Mark Carney acknowledges tariffs are unlikely to come off strategic sectors like steel and aluminum.
Hey, that's something everyone can enjoy.
U.S. President Donald Trump has announced a flurry of trade activity ahead of the midnight deadline to reach a trade deal. And if a deal isn't reached, 35% tariffs could hit a number of goods in this country. And joining me now to talk more about everything at play as the clock ticks down is Moshe Ladder, economics professor at Concordia University. Moshe, good to speak with you.
You set the bar there low. We're going to talk about everything, right?
That's right. Yesterday, because there is a lot has happened even in just the last couple days. Yesterday, Trump ended a tariff loophole allowing low-cost goods to be imported into the U.S. duty-free, and also announced a 50% tariff on copper. Any idea what kind of impact that will have?
The impact will show up months, if not years from now. And that's the important thing to keep in mind. We just got GDP data today that showed that the economy shrank by 0.1 of a percentage point in May. And so the worst thing that can happen now is for Canadians to shrug and say, well, I guess these tariffs aren't doing a lot of damage. When you're trying to move the ship of state around, it's like moving one of these huge luxury liners, and it doesn't happen that quickly. So we're going to see that the longer that this uncertainty remains, even if the tariffs eventually go away, the damage is probably being done and accumulating in that it's going to take time for people to realize that, we don't have as many goods available to us, the prices are higher, businesses are scaling back, jobs are being lost. And the same thing, of course, is going to happen on the other side of the border as well.
Exactly what you would do when it comes to tariffs. So why are you being so reticent to talk about that?
Because I'm a good negotiator. I have negotiated a number of situations in the past. I know how to manage crises.
It's very difficult to believe.
Look inside yourself, Rosemary.
Canadian values.
WTF.
Here, here.
The problem is that Canada doesn't have a lot of leverage here, in part because you're dealing with a crazy person, and it's really hard to negotiate crazy. But the other part of it is that where Trump says that the U.S. doesn't need Canada, he's completely wrong. But the thing is that Canada needs the U.S. more than the U.S. needs Canada. And so within those negotiations, he realizes that because he's calling the shot and because he has the leverage, he can do whatever damage he wants. And while it will hurt the U.S. economy, remember that when we're trading $500 billion in each direction of goods and services, their economy is 12 times larger than ours. So that number is much less consequential than it is to us.
Oh, yeah.
The pushback from Washington was swift.
The president expressed his displeasure and his disagreement with the leaders of France, the United Kingdom, and Canada. He feels as though that's rewarding Hamas.
Sovereign Palestinian state.
That displeasure stemming from the Prime Minister's announcement on Wednesday.
Canada intends to recognize the state of Palestine at the 80th session of the United Nations General Assembly in September 2025.
But Mark Carney set conditions for Palestinian recognition, including free and fair elections in 2026, a demilitarized Palestine, and Hamas having no part in governing. But none of those demands impressed the president, who said it would make it harder to cut a trade deal.
No, I didn't like what they said, but, that's their opinion. I didn't like that. Not a deal breaker.
But even Donald Trump, Israel's staunchest ally, has realized the situation in Gaza has become dire.
Some of those kids that's real starvation stuff. I see it.
How many kids did you molest with Jeffrey Epstein?
More than just elbows.
Speaker of Israel's parliament spelled out what he believes recognizing Palestine will lead to.
It will bring more murder of Israelis and Jews. If you wish for that, if you wish what you call a Palestinian state, put it up in London, in Paris, in your countries, which become more and more similar to the Middle East.
Israel has allowed some Palestinians needing urgent medical care to be evacuated, but for others there is no escape. As Redmond Shannon reports, every day without enough food means more people are dying.
Ready for delivery into Gaza, boxes of food and medical equipment. Part of this week's increase in aid shipments permitted by Israel. On the other side of the border, thousands wait, desperate to get hold of these packages.
It's kids. It's children.
This is footage from a United Nations convoy escorting trucks into Gaza. The UN says these are warning shots from Israeli forces. Once there's a lull, the crowd of young men swarms the trucks to get food. Israel's military told Global News the incident is under review and that its troops only fire warning shots when under threat. On Thursday, Gaza officials said almost 100 people were killed trying to get aid in the previous 24 hours.
Hey, that's something everyone can enjoy.
These are Muslim values. These are Canadian values.
Which is, and let's take the 5% of GDP figure, which is a huge chunk. Big number.
How much is it actually for you?
5% of our GDP would be about $150 billion.
How many kids did you molest with Jeffrey Epstein?
More than just elbows.